I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to United We Drink, right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, one of your co-hosts, and I am doing this by myself. And if you're familiar with the show, if I'm doing this by myself, that usually means we have a guest. Yes, we do. We'll get to Kevin and Joel in just a little bit, but a little bit about our guest. We're joined today by Josh from the Craft Beercast, a podcast about craft beer that has been going on for over 8 years at this point. And Josh and his cohorts talk about beer, taste beer, talk about beer news, especially stuff in their home state of North Carolina. Josh has been a friend of ours on Twitter for a long time, and we were super happy to have him come on the show. And when we asked what did he want to talk about, he wanted to talk about something near and dear to my heart, near and dear to Joel's heart. Kevin, not so much. We're going to talk about breweries stealing intellectual property. Yes, we have had an episode about this before. We know, but that was back in the Phil days. You don't remember him, right? We talked about it then, but Kevin's now on. Kevin's never talked about this in length or in detail on the show, so we figured, why not rehash this? We have some stuff that we can say that we didn't say before. He has feelings on this. Josh has feelings on this. So, without further ado, let's get all of the guys in here and let's talk to Josh from the Craft Beercast.
Hi, Josh. What's going on?
Hey, how are you?
It's great to have you here, man. How are you doing? I'll tell you what, for the people that don't know you who are listening, why don't you quickly give us some background on you, where you're from, about your Craft Beercast, all that good stuff, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Josh. As Joel mentioned, I've ran the Craft Beercast now for about 8 years. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina, so you know, the douchebaggery of craft beer cities that puts Asheville to shame with how many people move here and all the craft beer. Believe it or not, because of doing the podcast, I have never once worked in the beer industry. Like, that was a very quick decision that I made after getting to know a lot of people in the brewing industry of going, I just don't think I would be happy doing this. I'm going to stick to my day job.
probably a good call.
Yeah.
Well, the last time we had someone on who was not part of the beer industry, and nothing personal against them, and certainly not any sort of fault, but there seemed to be a little bit of, and I hate this word, naivete, as far as what goes on in the industry and what it's really like. But for someone who's not in the industry, based on the interactions you and I have and the things I see you talking about, I mean, you seem to have more of an insider understanding.
Oh yeah. So that is, I guess, the positive and negative of not working in the industry is knowing way too many people that do. So hanging out with beer reps, hanging out with brewers, hanging out with sales guys, like I have talked to just about everybody you can imagine, and getting those insights is one of the reasons why I wanted to come on and talk about what we're going to talk about. But I also think too, it opened my eyes to go, man, I don't think I would be happy doing this. Like, I can see the heartache that these guys put in and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into like brewing beer. Like, I'm not dumb. I know you guys don't sit there and drink all day, and 90% of your job, if you're a brewer, is cleaning. Like, and people do not understand that. It's just mind-boggling to me. They're like, oh, it's an alcohol fun land, and everybody. No, that's not how reality is, kids.
It's amazing that you're able to make that observation being, I hate to even say this, but like an industry outsider, because I feel like a lot of people feel the opposite, and it does compel them to want to get into the industry. I mean, I feel like each of the rest of us on this show, might have felt that way at one point, wanting to get into it because of just enjoying it. And, obviously the dream is, do what you love.
I think that a lot of people who are outsiders will see people at the beer fests and see them hanging out with other brewers under their tents and drinking like a beer in their hand at all time and think that is what the job is. And that is so far from the truth. And it is great when people realize that is not what the job is, and that is cutting loose for a weekend day. But some people do that when they get off work anyway, and those are things that we've talked about on the show before, is overindulgence and work-life balance and all of this stuff. But yeah, I think people see that beer fest and think, oh, that must be their careers.
In fairness, guys, there are some people in the brewing industry where that is what they do. There's a lot of beer reps out there, some that basically their entire job, or at least they think their entire job, is to drink beer every day, copious amounts at every place they go, and hang out with their friends. It's a minority, but that does exist. And I think we all know a few people that could fall under that category.
Yeah. And typically those bad reps end up getting moved on or moved out of those breweries almost every time I've met one within a year. Oh, where you at now? Oh, I'm not here anymore. Oh, big shocker.
Well, I guess I'll use this opportunity to make a bit of a corny segue and just quickly ask what everybody on this episode is drinking at the moment, if they are. Josh, as the guest, we will start with you.
So I am drinking a beer that is called Hazium from Foothills. Saw it, thought I'd give it a shot. Foothills is one of those old school breweries here in North Carolina. Sexual Chocolate, for most people, would probably know that beer.
Yep.
But,
great beer.
yeah, and a lot of their IPAs are just classic, fantastic stuff. And, I mean, it's okay. It's a hazy beer.
I feel like I don't hear a lot about those guys these days. And at one point, I remember, obviously Sexual Chocolate being one of the imperial stout whales that people would try to hunt down on Beer Advocate. I don't recall a lot of their beers outside of that, but I do remember having various ones from one of our owners at our first brewery, because I guess he knew somebody there, and occasionally we got some beer. What are some of their flagships, just for a quick reminder?
So they have changed a lot since, well, I shouldn't say since. I'm assuming a lot of breweries had to pivot with COVID and everything else. A lot of their flagship stuff now is a bunch of, I'll just be flat out honest with you, gimmicky IPAs, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of their like Hopium or
Yeah, Hopium is a
okay?
classic.
Okay.
Hopium is a classic, but anymore it's they're kind of doing what a lot of some of the legacy breweries are doing and just chasing that clout, trying to make that money. Meanwhile, I would just love a Hopium that was fresh. That's a big problem. Can't get it fresh anymore.
And it's practically your backyard too.
Yeah. I mean, Winston-Salem is 3 hours away from me.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, that's like our distance from here to Orlando, basically. Mike, how about you?
I am having a Shiner Oktoberfest. I saw this at my little indie grocer tonight and thought, July, Oktoberfest? Yes, please. And
Seasonal creep alert.
this is one that I think when we did the seasonal creep episode, I think we did a seasonal creep episode. I think we did.
Well, we are now.
We might have done it a little bit early.
Touche. This is one that I was like, yeah, I can always do with Fest beers and Marzens coming out early. Also have my can of Liquid Death because that's what I do.
Did you get in on the Publix BOGO?
I actually didn't because I was very well stocked on this and Spindrift, which I have become a bit of a fan of. Hear me out here. I used Joel's shaking his head. I've always liked Spindrift, but found them to be super expensive. It was like I can't ever remember what a 6-pack or an 8-pack was, but it was dumb. A 30-pack at Costco is $17, and you get 10 grapefruit, 10 lime, 10 lemon, and I think that's a stupid good deal to pass up. So I like Spindrift, and I have that usually now too.
It feels like that name Spindrift.
Oh, it's a terrible name.
It sounds like the straight to Redbox version of a Fast and Furious movie.
It is the .com era of like brand names. They just made up a word, and like that's the hip thing during that period, and they're just like going with it. Apparently, they have hard seltzers now too. Spindrift.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
I don't. Not my brewery, but me.
Well, Mike, I'm right alongside you there with the canned water, although I'm working on Polar Lemon, just straight lemon, not lemon lime, no other. I don't even know if they sell this in its own 12-pack. I don't remember, but because I rarely see it, but I did get this out of the BJ's pack. This is a 32-pack for $10.49. Now Kevin's shaking his head.
How boring, Joel.
Yeah. It's
flavored water. Jesus.
Yeah, sorry, it's not.
What have you
plain
become?
Polar.
What have you become?
Well, how about you, Kevin?
So I am drinking Mischief from the brewery. An excellent beer from an excellent brewery. Nice golden strong ale. Slightly hopped.
You know, I happen to have one of those too, right in front of me here. Thank you.
What are the odds?
Yeah. And I know we're supposed to talk a little bit about this. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to get into it a little later?
So smooth.
Mike, go ahead and take over if you feel like,
Well, I thought Kevin was going to.
If you're feeling froggy, leap.
Kevin left a very blank airspace.
I was waiting for Joel to describe what he was drinking. Obviously, you have the Mischief in front of you. I love the brewery. They're one of the classic legacy breweries out there. And if you love the brewery and love craft beer, which if you don't, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. You should probably find other things to do with your valuable time. But I highly recommend on August 13th heading out to Orange County for their 14th anniversary invitational. This is going to be an incredible event. 70 of the most coveted beer, mead, cider, and wine producers from all over the country. This is going to be open to the public. You're going to have access to 20 exclusive pilot brews from the brewery themselves. That is extremely rare and really, really cool. And in addition, the ticket's going to give you one meal from the artisanal food vendors there, live entertainment, and a collectible glass. And that's all for $120. So being able to support a incredible brewery that's kind of been leading the way from craft for a long, long time and drinking some really exciting one-off brews is pretty cool. To pick up tickets, go to invitational.thebrewery.com. Don't do that. Go to the brewery's website, The Brewery, TheBruery. Google it and you can figure it out. It's the first thing on their website, on their splash page, is a link to click to this to go to tickets, which it should be a really, really cool event.
And according to the can here, it is the 2016 gold medal winner from Great American Beer Festival in the American Belgo style category. Is it Belgo or Belgio? I mean,
whatever you want it to be.
I feel like it's Belgo, but
I think it's
Belgium.
Belgo.
What's that?
I think it's Belgo.
All right, I'm going with Belgo.
Yeah, that's what I've always said.
And I'm curious about, some of the copy on the can because
Belgo.
The description or the style listed under Mischief on the front of the can, which looks great, by the way. It's very minimalist but beautiful.
It's such a cool looking can. I've seen them out in the market.
And they've always had amazing imagery for their labels and stuff like that.
Right, and I only remember this from the 750s we used to get. So it's great to see it in a can. I'm wondering if they switched to, not switched to, but I wonder if the 750s were bottle conditioned. Because I recall this beer being much more carbonated. I mean, this is fine. It's great for the style. It's lovely. But I feel like I do remember it being a little tighter, if you will. But it's fantastic. It's really holding up. And I'm curious about what I was going to say. It says hoppy Belgian style ale. I don't remember if it said that originally years ago on the 750s, but I feel like I've seen a shift in the kind of labeling and marketing of beers that are not hazies and juicy, crispy boy, all that stuff. Like I think I saw an ad or a billboard or a truck or something for Allagash White, and it said either like hazy or citrus, or it just felt like it was trying to capitalize on the whole IPA craze.
Their can says that.
Does it?
Yeah.
Because it felt like, I hate to use the word pandering because I know they're not that lazy, and their branding and marketing and beer is unmatched. But sometimes I feel like I see various beers on the market that aren't known for having the hazy IPA characteristics, yet they're being branded as such to attract that crowd.
So are you suggesting that some breweries will brand their beer in such a way to attract people into buying them based on things that they love?
I'm saying that it is
son of a bitch.
I'm saying that some breweries will cynically ride the coattails of various keywords in order to garner more interest when they should let the beer speak for themselves.
Agreed.
I looked up.
You can't tee it up any more than that, Joel. I got nothing, man.
Joel, I did look up the old bottle labels, and they don't say anything about bottle conditioning, which I feel like I remember some of their brands saying bottle conditioned on the labels, but this one does not say anything on it.
Okay. Hey, it could just be my dumb memory. I don't know. But Lovely beer, nonetheless. I haven't been drinking much lately, so this is a nice return to form.
All right.
So that was probably the longest "What are we drinking?" segment ever. So in our email thread, talking to Josh, preparing for the podcast, trying to figure out what we're going to talk about, he brought up something that is near and dear to my, well, not my heart, probably my anus or something like that. But he mentioned IP theft. And I know I've covered this ad nauseum on this podcast and Twitter and everywhere else, but I'm happy to talk more about it.
We had an episode about it years ago when Phil was still on the show. So Kevin wasn't on it at that time, so why not rehash?
Right. And I was also interviewed a little bit about it on a pretty well-known, nationally renowned podcast that I won't mention because they unfollowed me. But property theft has been a real issue in craft beer for a long time now. At one point, I had an Instagram account dedicated to it because the more I would scroll through Instagram and Twitter, the more I would start seeing beers that went way past, homage, if you want to call it, or, inspired by, and were just straight up intellectual property theft. I'm talking taking the logo of like the Nabisco box and just, like in MS Paint, fucking just blurring out the Nabisco logo, but it's still like Nilla wafers or Oreos. And I don't know if anyone's seen it because it's so old now, but Beer Wars, the movie with Sam Calagione and talking about the craft beer movement and all that shit. There was a big segment of it talking about branding and two breweries suing each other over something like the word pumpkin. And it seemed like people would get real frustrated when one brewery would copy something another brewery is doing, but celebrated, celebrities being on a beer label that did not give their permission to do that. And even more egregious, ones who were dead and couldn't even defend themselves. And, just because someone dies doesn't mean they don't have an estate handling their image and likeness and shit like that. So, it's been a problem in craft beer for a long time. I don't know how prevalent it is at the moment because I'm trying not to pay too much attention. I did nuke that Instagram account and kind of pass the baton to someone else. But Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about what made you want to discuss this, and if you have any sort of prime examples. I mean, you don't have to call anyone out by name or anything, but just tell us what you're thinking.
Well, so believe it or not, what kicked this whole conversation off was a tweet from you, Joel, and one of my favorite comic book writers from back in the late 80s, early 90s, Walt Simonson, which happens to be a stand-up and just incredibly awesome dude that kind of saved Thor, in my opinion, wrote a bunch of Thor comic books, and you had retweeted the tweet that he had posted where it was a straight-up rip out of a comic book that somebody had stuck on a beer label. And I was like, are you kidding me? These guys get paid so little to begin with.
Yeah.
These comic book artists. They make no money. Really, Disney might as well just call them indentured servants at this point because they get no money. And then you have a small brewery that is got enough balls to do something like that. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, I'm even careful about using trademarks in episode titles or like even story notes that we post because I don't want to poke that bear. And it's mind-boggling to me that these breweries, I don't know where common sense comes in of, oh, hey, it's cute, it's fun, we put peanut butter cups in it. It's the Reese's color, but we didn't call it Reese's peanut butter cups.
Well, this ties into the comment Kevin made earlier. We're like, oh, why, You mean they shouldn't add branding and things to attract new customers? And my answer is pretty much the same. I mean, it's one thing to, have inspiration from. You can use the similar color scheme as an album cover you're trying to, copy or whatever. Whether it's cartoons or breakfast cereals or whatever it is. I mean, there are ways to tastefully do these things, and I feel like no one wants to do that because I don't want to use the word lazy. I know brewers.
I will. It's lazy.
Well, I feel like it just lacks imagination and forethought, and it's just unethical. The thing that bothered me the most was, and this is not intentionally, we're talking IP theft, and it sounds like I'm about to rip a Norm Macdonald joke, but it's total coincidence. But it's the hypocrisy. It's he did this joke about Bill Cosby, and it was all about the hypocrisy, not the rape. Anyway, but to me, it was like I'm sitting here in this industry. I've been working in it for I don't know how many years, and I'm constantly told that big beer is evil, corporate, whatever, and craft beer is local and ethical, and we're your best pal, and we're always going to do the right thing, and you can trust us, and we're here for you, and then it's like, well, you're stealing someone else's artwork to sell your beer. And half the time when these things get called out and they make the news, they end up fucking donating money to the company or whatever it was that they were ripping off, or they're just doing it for the free press. I mean, these are beers that are probably already in the tank, made in relatively small batches, probably guaranteed to sell out rather quickly, and then by the time the C&D hits, the beer's already gone and there's nothing more to pursue. So it's this fucking bait and switch, kind of devious little shell game they're playing, and it's really frustrating. And
I was going to say, sorry, Joel, didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, I think that's kind of the point, at least in my opinion. I think a lot of these places it's not laziness, it's out of pure intention of, here is this blatant logo. We don't give a fuck. It's going to give us some press. It's going to get some buzz, positive and negative, because at the end of the day, people are going to talk about it. Like you said, it's going to be a small batch. It's probably been already brewed, and we got to move this. We need to move this. Let's slap some logos on it. Let's make it look like this. We'll get hit with a C&D and say, oh, sorry, Nintendo, this pale ale that has the Triforce all over it that is labeled Zelda's Pale Ale is gone. Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and I think I know which one was being referred to about the comic book art earlier, because if it's the one who I'm thinking of, I called them out and then they slid into my DMs trying to defend themselves.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They because I said it was one of the most egregious things that I've ever seen, because it looked like they just took the characters and put them on there. It wasn't even like a parody drawing, like a silly looking drawing of it. It was just, you cut out the character out of your comic book and scanned it and put it into Photoshop. And they're like, oh no, we have an artist who drew those from scratch. I'm like, so they just copied. Like, I did that when I was fucking 8.
Right?
But it's a lot of what Joel was saying. It's this false, like, narrative being driven, like, oh, look at this big company coming down on us because we did this, and the moral high ground that they try to portray as being small businesses, like, oh, they're just coming after us, but also doing like, we are better than the big boys. Fuck off. Like,
they're protecting their goddamn trademarks.
Yeah, which they legally have to do, because that's the way trademarks work. You have to self-regulate yourself with that. And you know what, those also those big companies can probably pay artists a little bit better. I mean, I know you mentioned about comic books, but like there's a ton of these companies that have paid a lot of designers and artists and illustrators tons of money to create those things, and then a brewery probably was like, we'll give you 2 cases of beer, will you draw this for us? And it's that guy's thing.
Yep.
Kevin here has this look like, I cannot wait to jump in and school you assholes and give it to you from the owner perspective, and I'm just gonna shove the opposing opinion down your throats. So Kevin, if you don't mind, mute your mic, and we're gonna continue bashing IP.
When I said earlier that I was going to take an opposing opinion, I wasn't saying that I have an opposing opinion to what you guys are saying. But what I find so interesting is that we can sit here and call it lazy, and we can call it, illegal, was what it is. I mean, it is all, these are laws that are in place, and they are objectively being violated, broken, what have you. But what interests me in this conversation is what the people say on the opposite side of it when they've stolen someone's intellectual property. And I have to make sure that this is understood. I have worked at 3 breweries. Each one of them is guilty of this. Each one has done something that was taking an album, using artwork to promote that album that was a blatant ripoff of that album's art, taking names from different things in pop culture, designing labels around them. 100%. I am guilty of this. I don't know of many breweries that are not guilty in some way of this. Whether or not it's the most egregious example or the least egregious example, I'm not sure. But I want to know some of the defenses to this. I want to know what you guys think about. And one of the first things that I heard someone say is it's lazy. It's lazy. Some of the best comedy, art, TV, music is based on satire, spoofs, taking off, sometimes wholesale ripping off concepts and using them to make art. I mean, one of the great examples is Family Guy. I mean, that was one of the things that they have been accused of over and over again. It's just ripping off pop culture references to become, at one point, one of the biggest shows in the world. Laziness, to a certain extent, in a particular application, I'm sure, could be pawned off. But is there any defense to this, that using other things, using other people's IP with creative intent to continue to publicize it and do it in a creative way is defensible to any of you guys?
If you're not making money off it, sure. What does Weird Al do? He literally takes songs, writes, popular songs, and puts his own spin on it. That's satire.
He also asks for permission for every single one.
Very
he
true.
does, and that's true. But he's doing it out of parody, whereas and maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I'm even not working in the industry, jaded. I just don't see any of this out of parody.
Well, first, I should have probably disclosed that none of us here are IP lawyers or experts or anything like that, and this is all opinion and all based on just what we've seen out in the industry. And I think we should establish that there is a major difference between parody/satire and intellectual property theft. If you look at Campbell versus Acuff Rose Music from 1994 Supreme Court decision, that basically
He just has it in his back pocket.
This is this episode's version of therapizing. No, the Supreme Court has established, that you can make money off of fair use, but and I know there's so much different opinion and interpretation on this, but a brewery is not making I'll give you the perfect example. When brewed IPAs were a big deal for 5 minutes, I saw a beer called Brute Reynolds, right? Probably the quickest, easiest name you could come up with while you're on the toilet looking at your brew schedule. And I should also say that, you know, in a brewing environment, a lot of times the creative part is just a bunch of guys standing over a drain, saying and thinking and laughing at the absolute worst shit possible. And then some breweries actually do it. I'm grateful to, you know, for how, you know, whatever you want to say about a few breweries I've been at, we didn't act on a lot of instincts or silly ideas when we were talking shit over the drain. But a brewery does not make a beer like Brute Reynolds, which, number one, uses and tries to capitalize on the recent death of him, because that's when it happened. And it's also using an image from when he was on the cover of Playgirl or Hustler or whatever it was. So they did two things. They took his image and name, which I'm sure his estate still handles, right? It's not like I can just go put hologram Brute or Burt Reynolds in a fucking movie today. And then they're using an image that belongs to a photographer and a magazine and publishing company. So it's like a double whammy. And I saw double, triple, and quadruple whammies on some of these fucking beers. But that's a lot different than parody or satire. It's not trying to do it for comedic effect or anything. It is trying to put a known, established entity of some kind on a label to capitalize on basically brand recognition, in the same way that we're going to keep getting fucking sequels till the end of time to certain things. It's just like, oh, you know this, you love this, we have a built-in audience, so we're going to do this. But, you know, the people who made the fucking latest Ghostbusters didn't just go out and make Ghostbusters. Like, they had to actually work with people who own the rights to these things.
Like, to go on what Joel was saying, like, parody, satire. What is the parody and the satire in Brute Reynolds? What is it there?
Well,
there's usually in parody there's supposed to be something that you're supposed to get that brings to light, like, something obnoxious or going on in pop culture. Like, it's supposed to make fun of something like that, and not just in a haha, I put that thing there that is a thing. Like, parody is a specific thing, and just taking something, drawing it a little bit differently, does not classify it as parody.
I mean, The Simpsons have done that forever. I mean, they've brought in characters like Count Chocula. Now, maybe they might have used that character with the support of General Mills, whoever owns that, but the joke was that that character was there, right? I can think of a lot of examples in pop culture where the exact joke was, or the exact homage was, that we are using this character or this idea. So, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm on your side when it comes to this, but I'm interested in the conversation that comes off of it when this is what someone's going to say about being more creative than anyone here really believes it is. One of the other things that I think comes up almost every time is kind of, who does it hurt? The idea that something is going to be used to sell beer kind of necessitates that it's going to be a very, very popular thing, something that the vast majority of people are going to be behind or have seen. You rarely have an apple cart down the street being parodied, used to sell beer, right? You're very rarely using IP from small businesses to sell your craft beer. So I remember a time when I was in my 20s and seeing punk rock bands use the Detroit Pistons logo and thinking, stick it to the man, right? Those people are multi-billionaires. This is a cool logo. This is fun. This is interesting. Why is that not our position at this point? Why are we not saying, okay, Disney, you're Disney. There's nothing that's going to happen to Disney. No one's going to confuse the fact that these things are connected. You're not going to make any less money. We are just using this to show that we like this thing. And yeah, we're using it for our own profit, but who's it going to hurt? What do you guys think about that argument?
Josh?
Damn it. That is well said because, I was sitting here like actually looking up some of the old t-shirts that I used to wear that was like Scumboy, but it was in the Subway logo and, some of the stuff. But I Kevin, to your point, I don't know why it bothers me so goddamn much, but it does. And I don't know if that's just the fact of being young and naive and, in those early days of going, yeah, this is funny or this is parody or this is art. And now I'm a grown adult going, no, damn well what you're doing. You're chasing money. You're trying to create a buzz. You're doing this intentionally. But then at the same time, what were they doing back then? Same thing. Damn you. Why did you have to bring logic into this? Why couldn't I just be angry?
That's what Kevin does.
Well, I can definitely sympathize with that because I've definitely been there before. I remember in a band that I was in the 2003, making a fucking pin for my a little 1-inch pin that had Quagmire from fucking Family Guy on it. How is that for turning all of that around? But as for the who does it hurt, it does hurt that company in the long run if they do nothing about it, because trademarks are self-policed. And if you let one person get away with it, then that opens yourself up for having your entire trademark dissolved. And that if you then go after another person, they can be like, well, these guys did it with your IP and you didn't do anything about them. So your claim to the trademark isn't as strong as you think that it is. So that's where it can actually hurt a company, and a company can lose this is why the risk of a name becoming generic. That's why Band-Aid always says Band-Aid brand when they advertise it, because that is their brand name and they can't risk going generic or losing the trademark on that name. I think that's where it can hurt someone, is if they lose that, their company could be hurt. People could lose their jobs. And I think that is a kind of important.
Do you think that's realistic with the level? And I'm not trying to bait you. I'm just asking with the amount of breweries doing what they do in a very, very small scale. Do you think that's a realistic thing for Johnson & Johnson or Universal or Disney? Or is that one of those kind of like 1 in a million kind of chances?
I don't know, because I'm sure that there are ones who flew under the radar, and if dumbass McGillicuddy, who did get a C&D, was smart enough to be like, well, did they ever not prosecute or send a C&D to someone who stole their IP too? Let me look them up and challenge them. But they don't have the money to pay for a lawyer to actually fucking go and fight against that. But
I guess what I'm looking at is that what I'm trying to look at is the defense of this and the community that supports this and loves this kind of thing, because it taps into a pop culture conversation. The first time I saw Imperial Stout Trooper that had to have funny Groucho glasses put on it because of the exact things we're talking about, I said, oh, they like Star Wars. That's really cool as a brewery that likes Star Wars. Right? There is a connection that is made. So not only are the people that are doing this and making money, the people that are buying these beers like this. They really enjoy the pop culture connection, the idea that these breweries share some kind of, and it could all be nonsense. It could all just be jumping on pop culture bandwagons, but it also could be the fact that I suggested and made a beer called Wide Awake It's Morning once upon a time because I loved Bright Eyes and I loved that album, and it fit the beer that we were making. Now, it was just a name. There was no artwork involved in it, but that was literally ripping off the name of an album to sell a beer. but I was doing it because I loved that album and thought it fit the beer. So you're going to have people that are going to defend this, right, because of that aspect of it. And I just find it interesting that I'm sorry, I'm trying to put this together properly and not use more words than I have to. The entire idea of IP and the fact that it's going to take down bigger companies is something that some people like and would support, and they have no sympathy for the companies that they may hurt in some way, shape, or form. So there's a rallying cry behind that.
I really
That's
want to
the
respond
punk
to
rock
that
mentality.
because no, I've heard that many, many times, and in fact, that defense was thrown in my face once when I had made some sarcastic tweet. This is probably about 2 years ago, and I was just venting about IP theft I was seeing, and I made some joke about some local craft independent artisan, ethical brewery. I don't know. I said something about people have a problem with the theft of this art, but they have no problem buying a 4-pack of the fucking Power Rangers. And I forgot. I mean, that wasn't even a real beer. It was just me making something up for effect. And someone actually replied to me, like I forgot the name of the company that owns Power Rangers, but they were like, "Fuck them. They've got enough money." I mean, they literally said that to me. And then I said, well, what if it's, something you like? And then they just went off on this other fucking tangent. That was bullshit. And then not long after that, I remember them saying like, I better not see a fucking brewery make this particular beer with this particular, famous whatever. And then they did. And they were all up in arms about it. So, and Kevin, when you ask, who does it hurt? It doesn't matter if Disney has fucking billions and billions of dollars. The fact of the matter is, I wish that the breweries and the fans who defend this bullshit could apply the same energy and mental gymnastics to being creative about the beer. If you can sit there and spin a reason why putting, I swear to God, I saw 2 Murder, She Wrote beers. I don't think there's 2 people in craft beer who watch Murder, She Wrote. I featured these on the old Instagram page.
That's great.
Oh my god!
But I mean, literally Murder, She Wrote with fucking Angela Lansbury on the label, right? And you're going to sit there and defend this like, who does it hurt? Well, she doesn't get paid to be on your label, yet her face is selling your beer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's insane to me. Like I said, about the hypocrisy, and I feel like I had a point and I'm fucking losing it here because I went off on the Murder, She Wrote thing, but it just feels like if you're going to make shit up, if you're just going to make things up and go, oh, it doesn't hurt anybody, whatever. Okay, well, what if I had a smaller brewery than the brewery who's stealing the IP you're defending, and I go steal their shit?
Yeah.
How would you feel about me? If we're going to compare, relative size and when it's okay to do this and when it's not okay to do this, give me a number. What annual sales do I need to not hit in order to steal IP? Tell me the ceiling. I will make $1 less than that, and I'll put fucking Mickey Mouse on every can.
Joel, I love that description because that's exactly the next thing I wanted to ask. So one of the things that's always I found fascinating, and we're stepping away from the beer world, but I think it's relevant. The Disney Corporation made their empire on stuff in the public domain. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, didn't own it. That's public domain stuff. I mean, pretty much everything they did, other than Mickey Mouse in the first 30 years they existed, was public domain stuff. I don't know this. I hope one of you guys do. It used to be that after so many years, anything slipped into the public domain. That's why anyone can make a movie about Frankenstein. We all hopefully know this. Do you know this, Mike? It looks like
Yes.
you want to say something.
I'm looking it up.
Okay. But fast forward a 60, 70 years or so, and Disney realized that their trademarks were about to be dissolved for Mickey Mouse because it was old enough to enter the public domain. So with their power, they went to the lawmakers and got those laws changed and put off for a couple years and what have you. So Mickey Mouse and those creations would never enter the public domain. The reason why I think this is interesting is, one, there's some hypocrisy there, right? Obviously, but it's generational. It's, Walt Disney's long dead unless he's really a frozen head somewhere beneath the freaking Matterhorn. But I find it, one of the important things about the entire idea of intellectual property is that one day it would not just be your intellectual property. Your children's children are not going to tread on this name. At some point, it's all of ours, and we all get a chance to it becomes part of the culture. I love that idea. I don't know what the best time for that is, but I'm a little worried that we are going to live in a post-public domain world if we are not already living in it. And that got me thinking, are these laws just in general? Should you be able to own that property in the way that you do? And should every single person who trespasses on that, no matter how small or how big, should they be treated like a giant corporation?
Well, I want Josh to answer that next, but I just really quickly wanted to say that I don't think these things can be treated like fucking NFTs, where it's like, oh, you're the sole owner, but you know what? Everyone kind of has it. Like, you could just download it if you wanted to. This is someone's work. Just because it appears on your television or on your radio or on your T-shirt, you own the shirt. You own the DVD. You don't own the creative part of it. And if that goes away, I think it's chaos.
Josh.
Yeah, it kind of is and it kind of isn't. I can see this. So I was doing a little bit of background research too. Would you gentlemen like to know what the oldest known copyright is that is now technically still in existence but is public domain?
Sure.
It is the King James Version of the Bible. It is the oldest known copyright that fell into public domain, has to get paid royalties if you do any commercial performances, publications, or broadcasts of that version of the Bible. You have to pay royalties. Otherwise, it's just public domain. And, Kevin, you just opened up Pandora's box with this because, yes, copyright law, especially in this country, is a hot garbage mess. The fact that Disney did get to renew Mickey in perpetuity, basically. And that really shouldn't have been legal. He should have fallen into public domain. And a lot of this stuff should. And I guess it gets to the point where I think my major beef with all of this comes down to, and I know it's weird to say it, but going back to Weird Al, I'm cool if you ask for permission. If you ask Walt Simonson, hey, I found this really cool spread from a comic you wrote in the 80s. Are you okay if I scan this in and I put this on a beer label? If Walt says yes, cool. If Walt says no, then you fuck off and you pretend like it never happened. Because I see it both ways. At one instance, who is it hurting? If I'm using a character from pop culture. But then on the flip side, I also can see some of these points too of if I'm using like Reese's or like I found this image here. I'm going to throw this into our group chat. We talked about this on our show a while ago. It was this brewery in Australia that did this. And I can understand why people got upset with the art on this can. You can clearly see what that is if you know what that drink is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they knew what they were doing at that point. And so then, what if a little kid picks that up thinking it is the drink and it's not a beer? So I don't know. I guess It's weird to say, but I'm okay if it's pop culture stuff, if it's movies, if it's music, if it's, characters of some sort. But when it gets into the realm of, you're talking about an actual product, that's where it really starts to bug me and go, I really think, in period, I think, end of story, you should have to ask for permission. And if, I say, hey, Joel, I'm going to use a picture of you on this beer can. Are you cool with it? And Joel says no, then I fuck off. And if I decide to still put it out, Joel has every right to sue me into the ground.
Well, let me ask this real quick, because I want to respond to that, and I know the other guys are itching to say something too. But real quick, is Mickey Mouse not a product in the sense that Nestle Crunch is a product?
I would say yes.
Because that's like my only real disagreement with Josh here, is that because we're sitting here and we're kind of romanticizing various aspects of culture, and like I said earlier, like breweries used to go after each other for similar names or identical names. I mean, at my first brewery, we had a beer called Bridgeport Scotch Ale. I don't know why it was called that. Our owner was not good at naming things, and including the brewery. And then we got a C&D or something from, I guess, Bridgeport Brewing Company. And they wanted us to stop doing that, and we did. Now, it was not intentional on our part, to do that with the name. I think it was just something he pulled out of his ass, and it happened to conflict with an operating brewery. And you have to imagine someone in the area of that brewery who might have vacationed in Florida and tried Bridgeport Scotch Ale, and now they're there, and they're like, Bridgeport Brewing, didn't I have a Bridgeport beer? Yeah, let me look at my Untapped. Oh yeah, Bridgeport something. That's these guys. No, it's not these guys. It's these guys. You know what I mean? It's, even on the smallest level, I think you can create brand confusion. Now, I don't think, if you put Mickey Mouse on your can, it's certainly not going to be in a major chain retailer. It's something you're going to hope to sell out rather quickly. But I think that it does. I look at it overall, like blanket, no IP theft at all. I don't want to hear the horse shit about parody or satire or inspiration, inspired by. Like, that's I can understand if you like something and you want to apply that to the job you like, but it has to be done ethically, and it's just insane to me. And I feel like Mickey Mouse is just as much of a product as Oreos, which have been on a million fucking labels, or any other thing that has been on a beer can.
Real quick, on the Oreos thing, I was going to say this before, but now this is a perfect segue. I know maybe a year or two ago, Prairie in Oklahoma did a beer, and it had Oreos in it, and they asked for permission from Nabisco or whoever makes.
Mondelez.
Okay, them. Who makes Oreos. Hey, can we put this on the label? And they said, you can list Oreos as an ingredient. You can say that it's in the beer, but you can't use our imagery. You can't put anything that looks like the cookies on the label. And they put that out there. They were like, yeah, we made this beer with them. They gave us permission to put that it's an Imperial Stout made with Oreos. They said that we couldn't do anything else, so this is what it is.
They should have called Hydrox. They would have been totally okay with it.
Exactly.
So one of the I'm sorry, Mike. You've been waiting to talk, haven't you?
I did want to just real quick, because I looked up the public domain thing, and it's anything released before January 1st of 1927 has lost copyright protection as of this year, and every year thereafter, the next year will lose its copyright protection. It is 96 years of the first published or released version of the work to where it becomes public domain until
unless you're Disney.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah,
until
I mean we're getting a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, so in case y'all didn't know, because it's now fallen into public domain. So yeah, that shows the benefit of public domain, I guess, maybe.
So I wanted to mention this, and I know this is getting in dangerously close to everyone's like college experience, right? No one should own anything, man. It's everything should be okay. Like, how can you own property? It's all Mother Earth. I know I'm getting dangerously into that territory, but I think what Joel said is really apropos. Is that, like, across the board, this is not okay. I think you said it was ethically wrong, legally wrong. There's a famous story, and I hate to go to Disney, but it's just so prevalent, of a daycare center being sued by Disney for drawing Mickey Mouse and other Disney characters in their daycare. There's no doubt that they did that because that would entice the kids and maybe make them more. Maybe they made more money because they did that, or maybe they did it to make the kids happy. But I wonder, if you put that in front of 100 people, how many people would think that Disney were the assholes, and how many people would think that the daycare center were the assholes? It's when we put lights up at intersections and we say this is a red light, you can't go. We don't say you can't go because it's red. We say we can't go because there's cross traffic coming. But if it's in the middle of the night and there's no cars around and you run a red light, the spirit of the law wasn't important there, right? You set a law up as a blanket to catch everything. But there are times when breaking that law does not endanger anyone, does not hurt anyone. And we can think of 1,000 different laws and other instances where this would work. So I guess what I'm saying is that if I'm a brewery and I'm trying to defend myself against this barrage of hate and anger towards IP theft from the United We Drink podcast, and I say, well, my tiny little brewery is just this little example, and it doesn't really apply to this conversation. Is there anything to that?
Kevin, you're fired.
I'm asking questions, man. I'm on your side. And by the way, before you guys answer this, I want to ask you, am I allowed to mention a beer that Joel, myself, and Mike made with the name of a famous 90s hip-hop album that we ripped off the cover art for to promote it?
I was going to bring that up. We had a beer named Midnight Marauder, which was named after the Midnight Marauders album from A Tribe Called Quest. Mike designed an awesome, parody of the album cover, but instead of all these different rappers on it, it was all of the brewery employees' faces. That never saw the light of day.
No.
We had a very basic label that matched the whole, theme of all the other core beers, and the color scheme was altered to, go along with the color scheme of the Midnight Marauders album cover. And fun side note to that, the time it took to mash in that beer was the exact length of the album. I would listen to it start to finish as soon as I hit the strike water. But anyways,
yeah, we never put that design that I made. It was all meant to just be internal fun.
That was also like 2013, before any of this was a problem and any of us were really aware of how.
I will openly admit that it was not a thing in my atmosphere at that time. I didn't care that much about it because I guess I didn't respect myself enough as an artist at that time to really care. But as I've matured and feel like I've gotten better, this stuff means more to me. But yeah, that design that I put together was meant to just pass around through an email chain in the company and be like, hey, look at this. This is fun. I may have printed one out and put it behind the bar, just for everyone to see. But it was not put on social media. It was not put on any T-shirts or can art or used to promote it at all.
But by the way, the way I remember that is we wanted to use it, and Mike Hawker said no. That's the way I remember it.
It probably was. Like I said, I was in a very different point of my life at that time. and I would have been okay with that. I
And
remember I made a
also,
fucking T-shirt design that was said Beerista and made to look like the fucking Starbucks logo.
everyone has done the fucking Starbucks logo. But if it were today, if Kevin wanted to do, a Midnight Marauder beer or whatever, I would not give it the name we gave it. I would, pull some lyric reference or something like that, something that is not a copyrighted title. I don't really know how it works with lyrics, as far as what I don't understand the law behind how lyrics are protected, if at all, but I don't think it's anywhere near like the selling point of like a name or a title or anything like that. But still, it would have to be obscure enough to where I don't feel like I'm infringing. And when I was working at the brew pub and I had total creative control and I was naming all sorts of wild shit, my favorite thing would be when someone would point at the menu and go, "Oh, I get it." I feel like that connection is so much better than the blatant, we're going to appeal to all the morons with this, the Brock Simpson beer. Like I'm not gonna make something that everyone's gonna look at and go, "Oh, I get it." No, I want that. I would rather have one person go, "Oh, dude, I get it. That's fucking awesome. I love that movie. I love that song," rather than, and Kevin, the owner, will completely disagree with this, but I would rather make that one connection at the bar with a customer who gets the reference than have a fucking line of people out the door waiting to get my IP theft fucking 4-pack of Haze Can bullshit.
So just I have to defend myself here. So I am not a money hungry savage, and we have not done what you're talking about at all at any of the breweries I've been involved with. Even when we were stealing IP on a regular basis, we weren't doing what you're describing. And I have to reiterate, just because I want to know the answers of how you guys feel about these thoughts does not mean that I want to go out and make a beer that violates these ideas. But there is a notion of charity that all of us expect for ourselves. Mike, you said it perfectly. I was younger. I didn't think about this the same way. At some point, yes, there are bigger breweries and the ones that we're involved in that are absolutely treading on these ideas, pushing it as close to the limit as they possibly can, and trying to make a buck. There are also tiny breweries that aren't even thinking about this at all. They just want to make a Biggie Smalls reference because they want that connection, Joel, that you feel with an obscure reference, but they're not as nuanced as you are. So I'm just interested in the conversation. I want to make sure that there's some other than sitting here going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you for this entire podcast. I wanted to put some different ideas out there. And one last thing I have is because there has to be a cutoff point. We've all talked mostly about art, I feel. I feel that that's one of the main things that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. If you're going to just name a beer, Midnight Marauder, Wide Awake It's Morning, that is a album title, but not tread off their art, but just use the name. Isn't that as bad? Isn't that intellectual property theft? Isn't that lazy? Or does that, because it's not putting the art together, get a pass?
It doesn't, because I want to admit to my past copyright sins as well. So we made a beer that with one of our local breweries that like to use song titles for the names of their beers. And it was the first beer that we'd ever done as a collab. And we kept trying to come up with an idea. And at that point, Heady Topper was like all the rage. So we were like, fuck it. Let's call it Tribute. If anybody knows Tenacious D, we just straight up ripped off the song Tribute. And we named the beer Tribute, and we made it like a Heady Topper. So back then, though, I thought, this is funny. This is clever. Haha, Birdsong is the name of the brewery. We make all of our beers made, with beer titles, and that's kind of gone away. That shtick's long gone. But, that was kind of one of those early copyright sins that I committed, not really knowing any better. But, Kevin as you're mentioning, that's to me just as egregious as ripping off images. I mean, I've got another local brewery here that likes to take weird Frank Zappa or Weird Fish references, and they name their beers after that, but they do not use titles of their songs or their albums.
And that meets the criteria that you're comfortable with.
Yep, I am totally okay with that. But if they were to just, flat out, name a beer after a Zappa album or a song, now I'm kind of like, nah, that's not cool. I know what you're doing. That's not cool.
It looks like, Mike, you are like jumping out of your skin. You're itching. You're like, I need to get in here and tell these morons what they're talking.
It's actually not about the IP thing, but it's about a brewery that Josh just said. I don't remember, Kevin, if you were at the brewery when this happened, but Joel definitely was. We got some new tanks in at the brewery, and the transport of them. Another brewery bought tanks from the same company, and they went to that brewery in North Carolina first before coming here. They had their tanks and our tanks, and then this brewery stuck their stickers all over our tank, and that brewery was Birdsong. What a and world. We then had to fucking take all of those stickers off of our fucking FV. So thanks for that, guys.
And real quick, I just wanted to respond to one other thing Kevin said. When he was talking about, basically putting himself in the place of the small brewery trying to defend themselves against big whoever. I don't care if you're on a fucking pilot homebrew system. If you went to the time and trouble and expense of filing for your licenses and applying for this and that and getting a space and buying equipment and buying raw materials and making beer and hiring people and selling beer and buying glasses and installing draft handles, you've done months and maybe even years of work. You clearly have the capability to not do something so panderous. And like I said before, I don't like to use the word lazy. Mike does. But I just think that if you're capable of opening a brewery, you are more than capable of having some creative acumen to do this right. And the one thing I'm surprised Kevin didn't bring up was the classic defense of like, well, there's only so many words in the dictionary. And it's like, you know what? That's not fucking true. They add new words to the dictionary every year. It's usually stupid shit like TikTok and millennials or whatever. But, your ability, the possibility to combine these so-called limited words is practically limitless. You can take 2, 3, 4 of the words in this dictionary that you say is it and put them together in the same way that, if, like that scene in fucking Die Hard 2 when the guy goes, oh, this is like a 9-digit fucking walkie-talkie. There could be a million combinations. Look at your dictionary the same way. Make shit up. Go to the section with the letter Z and pull out some weird fucking word, and that's your beer name. What are the chances it's taken? Now,
you do realize, Joel, that earlier in this episode, you and Mike both totally shit on the idea of spindrift because it was a made-up concept and a made-up word.
He didn't say making up a word. He said combining words, finding an obscure word.
It's a very similar concept. I just have to point
spindrift is not an obscure word.
I said I didn't like spindrift. I said Spindrift was like a straight to red box Fast and the Furious movie.
Okay, I thought you guys were symbiotic in that idea that it sounded ridiculous to make a whole thing up. But hey, listen, I'll step off.
One of my favorite beer names of all time that I was a part of is one that Joel and I did, and I wish I could fucking take the name back. Is Continued Existence.
You can.
I know I can, probably, but I mean, it's technically under a fucking lawyer.
If you think that fucking asshole is paying any attention, this is the same guy who emailed me like a year into operation going, "Hey, I read this article this morning that said IPAs are kind of a big thing. Maybe we should make some." And I've got like 3 on the fucking menu. This clueless fucking asshole. Like,
did this happen in 2002?
No, probably 2018.
That's the joke. Sorry.
You're not supposed to say no, Joel.
I'm pretty sure I have a screenshot of this email because I had to show it to Mike, but I deleted all my old fucking. Well, I deleted emails from every brewery this past weekend. Anyway, that's as Forrest Gump said. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, I'm sorry, Mike. Really quick, just to jump on what Joel was saying. I don't know if you gentlemen have ever seen a can from Burial before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me we're running out of fucking beer names when you look at those ridiculous names that they have. Like, going into their tap room that's here, I feel like I'm reading half of the synopsis of a novel just to order a beer. We are not running out of beer names.
I like silly long names because
I do too.
A lot of bands that I dig have silly long names for songs. So I'm all about writing having a really long name up on the board.
The only thing I don't like about that is when you're actually behind the bar, you have to sit there and watch the moron in front of you try to recite it back to you. Like,
but if you're smart enough as a consumer, you can shorthand it in a way that you know that the bartender's going to get. Like, if there's a specific word in it, you can say that, and they're going to know what you're talking about. They're not going to be like,
no, this is
what?
why Chinese restaurants put numbers on the fucking combos, because how many different pronunciations of General Tso's or General Chow's or General Cho's do they get every fucking night? I mean, that's why you go, no, just give me 24. You know what I mean? Like, last week we were getting Italian food, and I convinced my wife to get chicken piccata instead of chicken francese or francese because I didn't know what the right pronunciation was, and I was the one who had to call in the order.
So should we just go into the next episode and roll into this conversation, and we'll just do a full 3 hours? What do you guys think?
No, I think we gotta start to wrap this up here.
All right. Well, before we get into last calls, we do need to ask our guest the question we ask of all of our guests, and it is not, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? It is, you're out roaming around the, streets of Charlotte. You've just had a very wordy bunch of beers from Burial, and you see the flashing lights of the Taco Bell marquee, or whatever the fuck it is. You pull into the drive-thru. What's your go-to order?
So my go-to order, because they keep fucking up with the menu and it drives me nuts, back in the day would have been a Mexican pizza, a Mexi Melt, and 2 soft tacos. Now it is just 3 potato soft tacos because I can't trust anything else.
I feel so weird about potatoes at Taco Bell.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of them, but their beef sucks. Their steak is terrible, and yeah, I mean, I can only trust the chicken at this point. And if now in my old age, if I've had too many, potatoes are about the only thing that's not gonna end up with a horrible, horrible night. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear Mexi Melt because I feel like everyone has forgotten about that.
Past, yeah.
No.
I mean, if that was all they sold, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Give me Mexican pizzas, Mexi Melts, and do you guys remember the taco burger?
No.
Oh, they used to have a killer taco burger.
Are you
Was that
in one of those like highfalutin test markets that we always hear about?
I was just gonna ask.
I don't think so, dude. I grew up in the middle of Kansas, so I highly
But they
doubt it.
usually do the test markets in the weird locations.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. But it was before the whole, think outside of the bun thing, and it was the old retro Taco Bells. It was like 2 blocks away from my house. I'm a teenager. Where do you think I'm going to go every fucking night? And they used to have taco burgers, and they were fantastic.
Kevin, do you recall this at all?
So I have only read about the taco burger in one of those crack.com articles about the forgotten fast foods. I thought it was mostly in like the early to mid 80s, but I've also realized that a lot of these specific foods have hung on in different pockets of the country for long periods of time because they were popular. So yes, I know about the taco burger. I've seen pictures of the taco burger. I have not had the taco burger.
Okay.
It's life changing.
Real quick, I mean, is it a standard bun? Like, what is?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a shit bun with Taco Bell taco meat and some cheese and sour cream, and then, if you happen to know the people or were hooking them up with illegal substances, you could get whatever you want put on it. So I used to get crazy combinations of it.
All right.
It was called the Bell Beefer, apparently.
Yeah, there you go.
What a name.
Right?
We should just end on that. Do we have to do last calls?
That's the title of the episode, the Bell
Bell
Beef.
Beefer.
Well, since Kevin brought it up, it is that time for last calls. This is the segment of the show at the very end where each of us have an unspecific amount of time to just rant on whatever. It does not have to be drink related whatsoever. Josh, you've been such a great guest. We're going to let you go first.
Actually, I don't really have anything to rant about today, believe it or not. I mean, I always do.
Is this
But-
allowed?
It's like a hellscape
sure.
that we live. Okay, how about this? We live in a fucking hellscape of a planet. COVID is still running rampant to this day. People do not take it seriously, and it drives me absolutely batshit insane that I am still wearing a mask. It's not that it bothers me, because I'm a mask bro for life now, but I shouldn't have to be wearing a mask in 2022 just for the fear of catching this insane disease that people still are not taking seriously.
Right on. Oh, geez. I feel like I should flip a coin here. Kevin or Mike? Mike or Kevin? Kevin looks a little antsy. No one can see this. We always talk about what's going on camera. We got to get this shit on YouTube because Kevin's rocking back and forth like he either has to pee or shit his pants or talk about the latest thing the Supreme Court did. So, Kevin, have at it.
I'm actually going to talk about beer in my last call. First of all, I'm drinking the brewery's So Radler Tangerine right now, as I have finished up most of this show, which is absolutely delicious. But I went to, and I know we publish these a little bit, and we record and then publish these a little bit farther in the future. But over the last weekend, we were up at Ellipsis for their big Fruit Punch Project event. And I had a chance to hang out with some people that I have not seen in years up in Orlando. Amazing, amazing people. And talk with some brewers that I had never met before. And, this was an event that was all around smoothie sours. That was the concept, basically, which is a style that I do not understand. I could not tell you a good one from a bad one. But I was so happy. My heart was warmed because every brewer I talked to, all we did was talk about lagers and brown ales and ambers. And it didn't matter if they were making the most off-the-wall, non-beer tasting beer. Every brewer I talked to was waxing poetic about ESBs and amazing classic craft beer styles. And yes, I understand that this is the flavor of the month and people enjoy them. And I'm happy that there is a market for that and they can grow and make their money off of it. But I've always said that when you get with brewers, they want real beer. They want the kind of stuff that I like. I found my people. We were hanging out and talking about that. And even though that was not represented very well at the beer fest that I was at, I was just so excited to talk about those styles and also set up a couple collaborations maybe in the future based around doing some real beers that I love. It was pretty cool.
Joel, unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Well said, Kevin. I'm going to let Mike go last, so I'm going to jump in real quick. I know everyone is mourning the loss of the Choco Taco. And I just want to say one thing before I get into that. You guys fucking always laugh off mic, and I got not Mike Yurevich, microphone, uh, and only I know it because it's not recorded because you either move away from the mic or mute yourselves. So when you're laughing, the recording sounds like I'm bombing. Just letting you know. I got a text from a friend today who said, I'm fucking howling at the awkward silence from Mike and Kevin on the last episode when you were saying we need to get rid of all white women. So thank you. Yeah. I'll just, I'm gonna get one of those soundboards, and I'm just gonna have it's like the sitcoms with what do they call it? Laugh track. That's what I need.
Yeah, get you a laugh track.
All right. Anyway, so I know everyone is mourning the loss of the Choco Taco. It is a taco-shaped. I referred to it as basically a differently assembled drumstick cone. That's really all it is. It's ice cream in a fucking waffle cone shaped like a taco with chocolate and nuts on top and all that shit. I know everyone's freaking out. You haven't had a Choco Taco since fucking third grade, but you're upset about it nonetheless because what else is going to keep you addicted to social media than your latest thing to be upset about that you don't really care about? See, Kevin's laughing, no one can hear. Anyway, so but I keep seeing targeted advertising in my social media now, like heavy. And I don't know if it's because of anything I've said or tweeted or that my phone heard me talking about, but for some reason I am getting a lot of ads for Klondike bars. Now, if anything should have gone the way of the Choco Taco, it's the Klondike bar. It doesn't have a stick. It's like a Magnum bar, but with no stick. It's just a chocolate shell with ice cream inside. It feels like the Werther's original of ice cream bars. I mean, who eats fucking... Oh, fuck off. Now they laugh on Mike. Okay. Anyway, fuck. What was I saying now? You fucking
Klondike.
assholes. Right. So the classic advertising that has not changed in 50 years is what would you do for a Klondike bar? So because I have muted all your incessant ads, I'm just going to tell you what I would do for a Klondike bar. I would take money out of my pocket and I would hand it to the person selling the Klondike bar. That's it. That's the extent of my passion and whatever for the Klondike bar. I will pay you for it if there's nothing else available. All right. I know you want to act like this advertising probably came out like back in the 50s when there was really nothing to get worked up about except communism and Klondike bars. So, you got to change it up now. There's a lot more than Klondike bars these days. We've got the internet. We've got OnlyFans. We've got, any type of porn you want to watch. Like there's a lot I would do for some of the things I see on these websites. I wouldn't do much for a Klondike bar. Mike.
First of all, do you need a receipt for that Klondike bar?
No, Mitch.
Thank you. I want to say, fuck this dude, Adam Mosseri, head of Instagram.
Oh.
This motherfucker came on his fucking Twitter account yesterday and tried to tell everyone who's been mad at Instagram for, especially businesses, for the last month and a half, 2 months about how much engagement and reach they have lost because of the algorithm changes, and being like, we've seen a change in posting to be more videos and reels and stories. So that's the way it's going. It's going that way because you changed the fucking algorithm to be as such. And then, after people fucking drug him through the comments, this was a comment section that I loved reading through. I was fucking joy scrolling through the comments on this. He tried to go, like, the only reason that things aren't showing up in your feed is because we've put more emphasis in the growth of stories and DMs. That's where the growth is at. That's because you fucking write the algorithms that say so. Stories, it's a Snapchat feature that you fucking stole from Snapchat. DMs, it's fucking text messages inside of another app. Shut the fuck up. You have all of your users telling you what they want. They want Instagram to be about photos. They want it to be in a fashion that they can easily scroll through and not have stupid fucking reels from stupid people who they don't fucking follow. The fact that I have 11,000 followers for our company on Instagram and we get you have more. No, wait, no you don't. You have more on Facebook. The fact that we only get viewed by 10% of the people who follow us, who have chosen that they want to see our stuff. And you have said, you know what? It's not about photos. It's about videos now. Now I have to be about videography, filmography. I got to make videos to have my brand fucking seen. Go fuck yourself, Adam Mosseri, whatever the fuck your name is. Like, you have dug your heels in, and people are dragging you, and it is fucking glorious to see. It won't be as glorious as when Instagram maybe goes back to its glory days and becomes a relevant fucking social media platform again. But fuck, I am all in on seeing people dunk the fuck on you.
I knew Mike would finish strong. I had a sense. I saw the look on his face. It like Kevin was moving around and really seemed like he had to get something out, but Mike had this like mellow rage building. Like he was just like,
It's been building since yesterday. I was like, oh, this is gonna be my fucking last call.
Yeah, maybe if you're gonna deliver a message to millions of people, don't dress like the fucking man in the yellow hat.
Well,
all right. I'll let Mike close it out because he's good at this part.
No, I do all that in the outro. I just want to thank Josh for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun talking about something that I am a big proponent of. So.
Can I just say, Josh, can you come up with another idea to talk about that I can antagonize the three of you for an hour or so about?
I actually probably have about 4 or 5 already in the can, so.
Let's do it again. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, Josh, thanks so much. It was a lot of fun. It's great to finally talk to you, not in person, but, live and in color. Please tell people how they can find you, your podcast. I did see on your website that you guys recently covered Hard Mountain Dew Baja Blast, so I got to tune in.
Yeah. God, that had been one of those things we've been talking about it for, it feels like a year now since Sam announced that they were making this, and we're like, there's no way. So we made a big production of it. We got some Taco Bell. We got the actual Baja Blast in, did them side by side, because why wouldn't you, right? I mean,
yeah.
The king, somebody's coming for the throne. The king's got to be present. But you can follow my podcast at CBcast on Twitter, or just go to craftbeercast.com. The links to all the social stuff's out there, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. So just hit us up anywhere there.
Thank you, dude. Kevin, you want to plug what you were talking about earlier and any other things?
What was I talking about? Mike's going to plug that later on.
Oh, okay.
I have nothing to say.
All right. Well, I will say thank you for the brewery beers that I tried here. This Radler is lovely, man. I was expecting something a lot kind of thicker and almost pulpy in a way. I've had a lot of weird Radlers that use like real fruit juice. I mean, I don't know what's in this. I haven't even read the can. I apologize, but it's a lot cleaner and crisper than several other Radlers I've had. So looking forward to what Mike has to tell us about the brewery and what they've got going on. In addition to what Kevin said earlier, you can find me and Kevin at Barrel of Monks Brewery. Kevin is also got his fingers in another pie called Odd Breed Wild Ales in Pompano Beach, which you definitely need to check out. I don't know what that means, Kevin, but we didn't. What's that?
My fingers. You said I had fingers in other pies, and I gave you my fingers.
That was like the motion they make in Beetlejuice when he's got the eyeballs on his fingers. So I didn't know what you were doing. Mike.
You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, United Drink Pod on Instagram, and then all of the other podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, all of those things. And other than that, yeah. Thanks so much, Josh, for coming on and joining us.
Thanks, Josh.
Again. Yeah, thanks again, guys. Really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you. I will see you in the Twitterverse, and hopefully
no one
next
else.
time I make next time I make it up that way, I will definitely try to have a beer with you, dude.
For real.
All right. Well, thanks
Cheers.
for listening, everyone. Cheers.
Another big thanks to Josh for coming on the show. Be sure again to check out their podcast, Craft Beercast. Their website is craftbeercast.com. They're on all the social media outlets. They're on all of the podcast services. So like how we normally say what podcast services we're available on, they're on them too. So go subscribe to both of our shows. Listen to both of our shows. Support us both. We're friends. We're fam. Right? So go support Craft Beercast. Before we shove off here, one quick more recap. Remember the brewery 14th anniversary invitational Saturday, August 13th from noon to 4 p.m. Pacific time at their brewery in Orange County, California. It's open to the public, unlimited pours from over 70 breweries, meaderies, cideries, wine producers around the country. The brewery themselves will have 20 event-exclusive pilot brews that you can only get there. The ticket also includes a meal voucher for one of their artisan food vendors, live entertainment, and a collectible 14th anniversary glass. You can purchase tickets for $120 at their website, thebrewery.com. That's THEBRUERY.com. Also invitational.thebrewery.com/PR. We're going to have people from the brewery on the show in a few weeks. We're going to have Barry Holmes, the CEO of the brewery and offshoot, as well as James Bruner, the director of production from the brewery and offshoot, on the show. Not the next episode, but I believe it will be the episode after that. We're still working out some of the details, but we're really stoked to have them on the show. Something for you guys to look forward to. Teaser, if you will. Other than that, we gave the social for the podcast in the interview, so we don't need to do that again. But hey, if you want to support the show, go check out some of the brands that we love on our website, UnitedWeDrink.com, Made In, Cookware, Liquid Death. We also are really happy to be partnering up with Athletic Brewing for non-alcoholic beer. So go check them out. And any purchases that you make from these companies through those links help out our show. We don't make any money really from them. We just take that money and apply it to our hosting fees. So, hey, if you can take a few bucks out of our pocket going to the hosting and just help the show stay alive, we appreciate that. You can also buy a shirt, button, sticker, pin. All of that also goes towards hosting fees when we sell any of that. And you can check out our store at unitedwedrink.com/store. Other than that, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. The three of us doing what we do best over here on United We Drink. So we'll see you then. Cheers.
All right, we are here with Josh T of the Craft Beercast. Josh, it is great to have you on.
Just talk about how you don't have to do that.
We should have talked about not fucking interrupting and just letting me go with it. God damn it!
Please keep all
Even
this
fucking
in.
even Sam Harris does that.
I'm not Sam Harris.
Okay, so